Hello there, you're watching All 24 News World News program. To the headlines. Dozens of martyrs and wounded have resulted from the ongoing Zionist bombing of various areas in Gaza, and the UN warns of the severe impact of attacks on hospitals in northern Strip. Hamas says new conditions from the Zionist occupation delayed the negotiations, while the International Court of Justice pursues legal action over the occupation's practices in the occupied Palestinian territories. At the government's meeting with governors, recommendations for sustainable development aligned with President Tebboun's vision to strengthen local communities and improve the investment climate. Digital transformation was highlighted as key to modernizing public services. And in Sudan, UN reports confirm that hunger is spreading in the country, with millions of Sudanese in urgent need of food aid. Stay tuned to the details shortly after the break. Welcome back to the details. 11 Palestinians were killed and others injured on Wednesday in an airstrike by the Zionist occupation targeting a house in the Man area east of Khan Younis in southern Gaza Strip. Civil defense teams and the Palestinian Red Crescent transferred the victims to a government hospital despite obstruction by occupation forces during the transfer of those wounded in a nearby raid. 9 Palestinians were killed and others injured on Tuesday evening when an occupation aircraft bombed the residential building in Jabalia, northern Gaza Strip. The Palestinian news agency reported that a man, his wife, and 5 siblings from the same family were among the victims in the Nazla area west of Jabalia. 3 Palestinians from the same family were killed and others injured in a Zionist occupation airstrike targeting a house in Beit Hanun. The Palestinian news agency confirmed that the attack caused multiple casualties. 3 Palestinians, including a child, were killed and over 20 others injured on Wednesday in a Zionist occupation airstrike targeting tents sheltering displaced people at Al Mawhubin school in Sheikh Ridwan, northwest of Gaza City. Local sources reported that the school was housing families displaced by the ongoing attacks. 26 Palestinians were killed and others injured in Zionist occupation airstrikes on residential neighborhoods across Gaza since dawn. Local sources reported that warplanes targeted homes in multiple areas, accompanied by intense artillery shelling in the north, center, and south of the Strip. The Palestinian Ministry of Health reported on Wednesday that the Zionist occupation carried out 3 massacres against families, resulting in 23 martyrs and 39 injured within the past 24 hours. In a preliminary tally, the ministry confirmed that the death toll from the Zionist ongoing aggression has reached 45,361, with 107,803 wounded since October 7th of last year. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has warned of the severe impact of recent attacks on hospitals in northern Gaza on civilians remaining in the besieged areas. On Tuesday, the UN expressed deep concern over reports of Zionist forces storming the Indonesian hospital and forcing people to evacuate. It also highlighted recent attacks near Al-Auda and Kamal Udwan hospitals, the last 2 health facilities operating on a limited scale in the north. Hamas called on Palestinians on Wednesday to resist Zionist occupation forces and settlers in occupied Al-Quds and the West Bank. Leader Harun Nasser al-Din denounced the increased settler incursions into Al-Aqsa Mosque, warning they aim to Jewadize Islamic sanctities. He urged Palestinians to thwart these plans, mobilize at Al-Aqsa, and support resistance as the extremist government exploits Jewish holidays, for settlement expansion amid the ongoing aggression in Gaza Strip.
The increase in settler incursions into Al-Aqsa must be confronted, and all Judaization plans that the extremist government seeks to implement and impose in the occupied city of Al-Quds must be thwarted. All Palestinians must rally in Al-Aqsa and repel all settler attacks and strengthen support for the resistance and back it in the face of the ongoing war of extermination in the Gaza Strip for more than 14 months.
Hamas announced on Wednesday that new coalitions set by the occupation have delayed reaching an agreement that was previously close. In a statement on its official Telegram channel, Hamas confirmed that the ceasefire and exchange or prisoner exchange negotiations are continuing seriously in Doha, mediated by Qatar and Egypt. However, the occupation's introduction of new issues regarding withdrawal, ceasefire, prisoner exchange, and the return of displaced Palestinians has postponed any final agreement.
The ceasefire and prisoner exchange negotiations are ongoing in Doha under Qatari and Egyptian mediation with serious engagement. The movement has demonstrated responsibility and flexibility. However, the occupation has introduced new issues and conditions regarding withdrawal, ceasefire, prisoners, and the return of displaced persons, which has delayed reaching an agreement that was within reach.
The Gaza Civil Defense reported on Wednesday that crews are retrieving bodies of martyrs' missing organs devoured by stray animals due to food shortages caused by the Zionist occupation's starvation policy. These scenes, often witnessed by occupation forces, have become increasingly difficult for civil defense personnel who must scare off stray animals before recovering the bodies.
A number of the bodies of the martyrs are being recovered with missing parts that were devoured by wild animals. Wild animals have become more aggressive due to famine, and scenes of them devouring the bodies of Palestinian martyrs lying in the streets are cruel and almost common. Most of the bodies devoured by wild animals are in areas close to the occupation forces' positions and the places they besieged and prevent movement in.
The International Court of Justice has begun procedures to issue an advisory opinion on the Zionist entity's obligations regarding the activities of the United Nations, international organizations, and other countries in the occupied Palestinian territories. This move follows a UN request to hold the occupation accountable for its crimes against international bodies, mainly UNRWA. Hussein Burkan has more.
The International Court of Justice has initiated new proceeding against Israel's actions targeting the United Nations and its organizations, including UNRWA, following the Qanat's decision to prohibit the agency from providing essential services to Palestinians and begin seizing its properties and headquarters.
The United Nations General Assembly has requested the International Court of Justice to provide an advisory opinion on Israel's obligations regarding the presence and activities of the UN and other international organizations in the occupied Palestinian territory. In this context, the court's president issued an order to organize the proceedings. The president set February 28, 2025 as the deadline for submitting written statements on the matter to the court. Further proceedings will be determined at a later date.
This development occurs amid dire humanitarian conditions in Gaza, which has faced over 15 months of continuous genocide, involving killings, starvation, and displacement, alongside escalating aggression in the West Bank. Previously, the ICJ declared that the situation in Gaza constitutes genocide and ruled that the Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories is illegal. These decisions represent another blow to the occupation and strong endorsement of Palestinian rights.
The Houthi group in Yemen announced on Wednesday that it had targeted a military site of the Zionist entity in the occupied Yafa area with a hypersonic ballistic missile. Houthi spokesman Yahya Sari' stated in a televised message via Telegram that the missile, Palestine 2, successfully hit the target, achieving its intended goals.
The missile force of the Yemeni armed forces, with the help of Allah, has targeted a military site of the Israeli enemy in the occupied area of Yafa using a hypersonic ballistic missile type Palestine 2. The operation was successful in achieving its objectives. Thanks to Allah, the Yemeni armed forces, in the light of the ongoing genocide against our brothers in the Gaza Strip, reaffirm that they will continue their military operations against the Israeli enemy in the coming period.
Iran stated that the Zionist occupation's admission of responsibility for the assassination of former Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh validates Iran's stance, emphasizing the occupation as a major threat to regional and global peace. In a letter to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Iran's ambassador to the UN, Amir Saeed Eravani, highlighted that the admission, particularly as it occurred on the territory of a UN member state, underscores the international responsibility that the Zionist occupation holds for its aggressive actions. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune granted a presidential pardon to 2,471 prisoners for the new year 2025. According to a press release from the Presidency of the Republic, the pardon includes full sentence remission for those sentenced to 24 months or less, and for the detainees sentenced to 18 months or less. A partial sentence reduction was also granted to prisoners with sentences greater than 18 months but not exceeding 30 years. On Wednesday evening, Algerian Prime Minister Nadir al-Arbawi wrapped up a government meeting with governors at the nation's palace in Algiers following President Tebboun's opening on Tuesday. The session ended with key recommendations of local development, food and water security, job creation, and digitizing public services. Al-Arbawi highlighted that these proposals align with President Tebboun's vision to strengthen local communities and improve the investment climate.
لقد تابعت حقيقة باهتمام التوصيات والاقتراحات.
I have really followed with interest the recommendations and proposals that crowned the proceedings of these workshops, which were perfectly in line with the guidelines of the President of the Republic announced during his opening speech, and calling for deepening the dialogue on issues relating to local development, notably structural projects with regional integration, reducing development disparities and increasing the role of local communities in addressing citizens' concerns and improving the investment climate as part of a global approach aimed at diversifying the national economy in order to consolidate national sovereignty by strengthening food and water security, as well as giving priority to the quality of life of citizens while elaborating development programs, defining priorities and setting deadlines.
مع تحديد الأولويات وضبط الأجال المحددة.
The Algerian Prime Minister also highlighted the high priority President Abdelmadjid Tebboune places on digital transformation, emphasizing that it is a collective challenge that must be met to develop and modernize public services in the country.
هناك محور إضافي مهم لعملنا.
There is another important axis in our work, which consists of improving public services, modernizing them and bringing them closer to the citizens, as emphasized by the President of the Republic during the opening session. This requires taking concrete and effective measures while pointing out that the efforts deployed in the field of digitization are likely and directly able to improve the citizens' daily life and spare them the daily hurdles to obtain a document or finalize a simple administrative procedure. In a broader level, we should redouble the efforts to make public services accessible to the inhabitants who are far from these services. In this respect, I would like to underline the paramount importance that the President of the Republic attaches to completing the digital transition project, which will allow for a radical change in the relations between the administration and the citizens through transparency and the fight against all forms of bureaucracy, in addition to eradicating corruption.
Similarly, the government's meeting with the governors marked a key milestone in Algeria's efforts to establish a new system for managing local communities. This vision, recognized by the Algerian leadership as essential, aims to fulfill the aspirations of the society at both local and national levels. More details in this report by Marwa Blaiwer.
In an effort to overcome persistent challenges in local governance, Algeria has announced new reforms aimed at improving the management of local communities, considered the backbone of the state and the primary link between citizens and officials. President Abdelmajid Tebboune has outlined plans to introduce a new local governance system, set to take effect in early 2025, as part of his broader vision for sustainable development and reform.
قمت بتنصيب لجنة خبراء وأسندت لها مهمة إعداد مشروعي قانوني البلدية والولاية على نحو يقضي على مختلف العوائق ويجعل من هاتين الجماعتين ركيزة المنظومة المؤسساتية وأداة فعالة للتنمية المحلية، حيث تم في هذا الصدد العمل على رفع كافة العراقيل.
The initiative also includes reviewing municipal and state laws to grant elected officials broader powers, a move seen as a key step toward building strong democratic institutions. Governors across the country are actively collaborating with the government to implement these reforms, focusing on developmental equity and the responsible management of public resources.
The President of the Republic delivered an important speech that we have adopted as a roadmap. We will work to implement all the instructions it contained. This meeting was dedicated to addressing some of the obstacles facing local development.
The programs adopted for the near future and the upcoming year are highly ambitious. We consider them a challenge because the President of the Republic has placed us before significant challenges, economic, social, and particularly those related to strengthening proximity to civil society.
The recent meeting between the government and the governors served as a platform for advancing sustainable local development, emphasizing achievements in improving social conditions as a foundation for completing Algeria's reform and development agenda nationwide.
To economy now, Algeria is considering a project to generate 1,000 megawatts of wind energy following a recent study highlighting the country's significant potential in this area. Ordini Yessa, Secretary of State to the Minister of Energy in charge of renewable energy, announced this during the second international workshop on renewable energy. This project is part of Algeria's broader renewable energy program, which aims to produce 15,000 megawatts by 2035.
Algeria is advancing its energy transition by implementing the National Renewable Energy Program, which aims to produce 15,000 megawatts by 2035. As part of this effort, Algeria recently launched a project to generate 3,000 megawatts of solar energy through the construction of 20 new solar power plants. Each plant will have a capacity ranging between 50 and 300 megawatts, with a local integration rate of up to 35%.
Similarly, the Algerian minister announced the establishment of a solar station in Tindouf and highlighted ongoing projects to hybridize solar energy systems with diesel-powered plants in southern Algeria. He also mentioned solar energy projects for Sonatrach sites, which aim to reduce carbon dioxide emissions.
سيتم إنشاء محطة شمسية في ولاية تندوف.
A 200-megawatt solar power plant will be established in the Tindouf province, equipped with storage systems to meet the region's energy needs. This project will also support the exploitation of the Garaj Bilat iron mine and its related processing industries. In addition, hybrid solar energy systems are being developed for existing diesel-powered power plants in the southern regions. Solar energy projects are also planned for highway rest areas, aiming to save the equivalent of 1.3 million tons of natural gas and reduce carbon dioxide emissions.
ويقلل من انبعاثات ثاني أكسيد الكربون.
The Algerian minister stated that the country aims to become a leading regional and international hub for green hydrogen production and export. He highlighted the launch of a model projects in partnership with European companies and ongoing studies to assess the economic feasibility of transitioning to clean hydrogen energy.
تستهدف الجزائر.
Algeria is setting its sights on becoming a regional and international leader in the production and export of green hydrogen, with a clear strategy established in September 2023. Algeria is participating in a major project, such as the South Hydrogen Corridor, which will connect Algeria to Germany via Tunisia. In October, a memorandum of understanding was signed between Algeria's Sonatrach and Sonagaz and companies from Italy, Austria, and Germany. This agreement focuses on conducting feasibility studies for the ambitious project, which aims to position Algeria as a key player in the global hydrogen market.
لتكريس مكانة الجزائر الرياضية في سوق الطاقة العالمي.
To a different matter now, Swedish activists Benjamin Ledera and Sanat Qutbi arrived on Tuesday at the Bujdur camp for Sahrawi refugees, concluding their bicycle tour in solidarity with the Sahrawi people. The two activists, who have been cycling for over 2 years across 25 countries, emphasized their journey aimed to raise awareness about the situation in the occupied Western Sahara and support the Sahrawi struggle. During their trip, they traveled 30,000 kilometers, concluded or conducted over 200 media interviews, and gave 100 lectures at universities to highlight the Sahrawi cause. To Libya now, the Libyan government of national unity called for the adoption of a constitution to end the transitional phases and regulate the country's political life. In a speech during Tuesday's celebration of Libya's 73rd independence anniversary, Abdulhamid Dabeiba, head of the internationally recognized government, urged politicians to respect the people's will in choosing their leaders. He criticized the disregard for both the people's will and the draft constitution, demanding it be put to a referendum.
The Committee of 60 of Libya was gathered under abnormal conditions and came up with a draft that, even if it's missing and can be criticized, but we can start from the remarks. And I think that the political institutions do not agree on one word. Thus, all of the propositions were failed. Today, we're celebrating the Committee of 60. We're not celebrating people, but what we celebrate is the constitution that should be brought out of the drawer.
Moving on to Sudan now, Sudanese Health Minister Haitham Mohamed Ibrahim stated that nearly 20 months of fighting between the army and the rapid support forces have caused the collapse of Sudan's health system. In press statements, he described the country's humanitarian and health crisis as unprecedented, noting that the clashes, which began in the capital Khartoum, triggered a major displacement crisis, forcing many citizens to flee multiple times. Still with Sudan, UN reports one of the rapid deterioration in Sudan, with the hunger expected to spread to 5 new major regions by mid-year. Other reports indicate that over 24 million people in the country urgently need food aid. Usama Iyadi reports now.
Catastrophic records of famine continue to ravage war-torn Sudan as the scourge has reached unprecedented levels, affecting tens of thousands of refugees west of the country, let alone displaced communities. The UN latest records from the IPC have shown that 638,000 people now face catastrophic levels of hunger, with an additional 8.1 million on the brink of starvation. The IPC found that famine was occurring in 3 camps in North Darfur, including Zamzam, where famine was officially declared in August, and among residents and displaced communities in the Nuba Mountains, south of Kordofan.
The situation was not safe at all. When the army entered, shots were fired and chaos ensued. I immediately took my children and walked to the Judah border with other people because we need a safe place for our children.
Between December and May, the IPC said 24.6 million people, or about half of Sudan's population, were expected to face high levels of acute food insecurity. The report said this marks an unprecedented deepening and widening of the food and nutrition crisis. According to the UN World Food Programme, areas of intense conflict, including parts of the capital Khartoum and Algeria in central Sudan, may already be experiencing famine conditions, but lack of access to data has prevented an official classification.
This place 2 weeks ago was almost empty. We built a reception center to accommodate few hundred of people. Currently, we have over 5,000 refugee and returnee who are staying at the border, and many of them also staying at the roadside connecting Ranktown with the border. People are arriving currently from 6 border points, and that requires scaling up of all resources, all our capacity to be able to assist them. People are staying with the community, sharing very limited resources with everyone.
International community has not yet reached a ceasefire agreement between the conflicting Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces. However, the Sudanese innocent civilians continue to bear the brunt of a war they only hope for its end. Despite the latest draft resolutions adopted by the UN that imposed the ceasefire, the warring sides have shown no sign of restraint amidst a total ambiguity about the ravished country.
The Kazakh Emergencies Ministry announced that 38 people died and 29 survived in an Azerbaijani passenger plane crash. The plane en route from Baku to Grozny was carrying 67 people. According to Sputnik Azerbaijan, the airline reported that the crash was caused by a collision with a flock of birds. That's the end of our news program for tonight. Thank you for watching. See you next time.